Township Council, Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, regular Township Council meeting of May 20th, 2014. Statement of compliance.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the Municipal Building on December 18, 2013, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared in both the Daily Record on December 20, 2013, and the Star Ledger on December 23, 2013, and was forwarded by fax out of local newspapers and local radio station on December 18, 2013. Note, council meetings are videotaped and aired on Cablevision, Public Access Channel 21 at 12 o'clock p.m. on Sundays, and are also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net.
Okay, please rise for flag salute.
Mr. Stanton, if you would.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. DePiero.
Here.
Mr. Paluso.
Present.
Mr. Stanton.
Here.
Mr. Valori.
Here.
Council President Karifi.
Here. Also present, Mayor Barbario, Joseph Kowalczyk, Jr., Acting Business Administrator / CFO, Paula Cazzarelli, Assistant Business Administrator, John Inglesino, Esquire, Township Attorney, and Yancey Wazermis, Township Clerk. Upcoming meetings, June 10th, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. Agenda meeting, June 17th, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. Regular meeting. Presentations, Mayor?
Yep.
We try to save batteries. You have to turn it on.
There you go. Well, I'm going to be giving a presentation tonight for a young man who came to my office several months ago. And he's doing this program. He's a young wrestler. He's in 3rd grade, called Pin for Cancer. Come on up, Cross. I'm going to tell him a little story about us, all right? You didn't pin me, did you? No. But anyway, he came to my office to tell me about Awareness for Cancer and a program that he actually initiated, from what I understand. His mom and dad came to my office, and we had a nice discussion, because what Cross did not know was that from my youth, when I was 9 years old, I had a brother who passed away at the age of 10 of a brain tumor, and I told him the whole story, and I think that made you feel like, hey, listen, I'm doing a good thing, Mayor, right? So I'm going to read the proclamation, okay? You want to hold this for me for a minute? There we go. I need these. Don't be shy. I see you're pinning a lot of people out there. The Township of Parsippany Troy Hills proclamation, whereas Cross Wazalewski, a 3rd grade student at Lake Parsippany Elementary School, is a devoted and dedicated wrestler for both the Partroy Wrestling Club and the Scorpions of Fairfield. And whereas to encourage the community and his fellow wrestlers to contribute to his efforts in joining the battle against cancer, Cross diligently organized sponsors to raise money for the PIN Cancer Organization, which works to raise awareness and fund cancer research. And whereas part of the PIN Cancer Project, Cross tirelessly devoted his time and energy to his wrestling practices in order to collect contributions from sponsors who donated a fixed dollar amount for every win, pin, or takedown he has had during the season. And whereas it is important to recognize Cross's commitment as a call to action against this dreaded disease, as he continues to be an inspiration to members of the community. And whereas Cross Wazalewski, as a source of pride to his family, friends, and fellow teammates, is commended for vigorously devoting his time and energy without desire for recognition. And whereas Cross's pledge to PIN Cancer fundraiser has and continues to inspire awareness with success, he continues his efforts to reach his ultimate goal of winning the states to promote his cause even further. Now therefore, I, James R. Barberio, the mayor of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, do hereby congratulate Cross Wasilewski and acknowledge his humanitarian efforts and noble endeavors. I further urge my fellow residents to follow in his footsteps and utilize their time and talent to help and make a difference. Dated this 20th day of May 2014. Thank you so much. We're very shy people. And these are the council members. I'm sure you can pin every single one of them. Councilman Ward, Council President Paul Carifi Jr., Councilman Brian Stanton, Council Vice President Robert Caluso, and the elder and the wisest, Councilman Michael Piero. All right, we're going to take a picture. You ready? Ross, thank you so much. Oh, sorry about that, Ed.
Okay, at this time, council's going to be going into closed session. Read a resolution, whereas the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Council is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, and whereas the Township Council wishes to discuss attorney-client privilege and pending and threatened litigation and personnel matters, and whereas minutes will be kept, and once the matter involving the confidentiality of the above no longer requires confidentiality, the minutes can be made public. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills that the public be excluded from this meeting.
Second.
Motion to adjourn, made by myself, seconded by Mr. Stanton. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Paluso?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes.
Mr. Valori?
Yes.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
We're on.
Like to make a motion to reconvene into open session?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Paluso?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes.
Mr. Valori?
Yes.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes. Bids to be taken, May 21st, 2014 at 10 a.m. Seal proposals for the supply of managed polymer for the wastewater treatment plant, May 21st, 2014 at 11 a.m. Seal proposals for the Craftsman Farms sanitary sewers, May 29th, 2014 at 11 a.m. Seal proposals for supplying service and parts for the sewer utility, comm line, Sanderson belt press, gravel belt, and pumps. Request for quotations, proposals, qualifications, none. And Mr. DePiero, ordinance number 2014:06.
An ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending Section 290-7, definitions, and creating Section 290-18, smoking, of the Code of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills. The notice for the ordinance above was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, on April 28, 2014. Motion to accept that ordinance 2014:06 to be heard in its second and final reading by title only.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mr. Stanton. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Paluso?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes.
Mr. Valori?
Yes.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Council President, if I may, we have the Girl Scouts back here that came for this purpose. If I could just explain to them, What happens now is the mayor will sign this ordinance, which will make it legal, and then the Parks and Forestry will be instructed to order no smoking signs, and then erect those smoking signs in the appropriate places at the parks.
Okay, at this time, entertain a motion, to open up the public hearing for this ordinance and this ordinance only.
Make a motion.
Second?
Motion made by Mr. Stanton, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Okay, please. Yeah. Okay, you have 3 minutes. Please sign in, state your name and address.
You want to make them all sign in, or just?
No,
Parent.
just a parent sign in. You don't have to sign in.
The girls would like to thank the council personally for the ordinance.
My name is Morgan. Thank you so much for this opportunity for people to speak for people of the town, especially children. The non-smoking ordinance will help the town's people to make good choices for their health. The one thing I learned about this extraordinary experience is that when you work together as a team, you can do something great. And I've never thought that a Girl Scout troop would ever get this far. But because we believed in ourselves and tried our best, we did it. Thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time to review and vote on our case. I learned that it takes time, persistence, and patience when it comes to seeing to something as important as this. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to everything we had to say. Smoke-free parks will help our town be better than ever. When we discussed what we were going to do for our bronze reward, my friend Deanna said smoke-free parks, and we all agreed. That's what inspired us. Also, my dad had cancer, so it's kind of personal. We have tried so hard, and we're excited and determined. Thank you for listening to everything.
Thank you for considering our ideas. From this experience, I learned the importance of staying away from secondhand smoking and preventing it.
Thank you for considering our ideas. We really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to discuss this matter. Preventing secondhand smoking is an important part of children's lives of Parsippany. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to our petition against smoking in parks. I've had a great experience researching many effects of smoking. I have also learned how smoke-free parks will benefit our town.
Thank you again to the council for this ordinance. It's a baby step toward what we hope someday will be 100% smoke-free parks in Parsippany, Troy Hill. So thank you very much.
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Capitacho, 182 Hawkins Avenue. I'd like to thank the Girl Scouts because it is something good that they did. As a smoker, I can understand them. However, I want to know, did you check into the penalties and stuff that I had mentioned last week? Do you know what's really...
It's on.
It's on? I'm talking into it.
Get closer.
It's on. It's on.
It's not working. I don't know.
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah, just talk loud, that's all.
Okay. All right, I congratulated them. Okay, now I'm asking you about the penalties. Did you look at what those penalties were when they tell you in that ordinance refer to? Did you?
I do know on the signs, Pat, they always put the max.
Yeah.
And they do it with all like offenses like that. They put the max penalty is, and then if someone gets cited for it the first time around, it's not gonna, you know what I mean? The number
Yeah, well,
they put
I
on
don't
there.
think it said max penalty. I thought it said penalty.
No,
And
it's-
with a maximum of jail time and whatever.
Yeah.
That's a standard, so that's... And did you ever answer my question? The alcohol with the permits and stuff? That's permitted in the parks.
Well, that's not part of the public order, that's not part
No,
of this.
I know,
ordinance.
I'm asking that question.
Yeah, we can.
In regards to this ordinance, I'm asking.
This was only smoking.
This is about smoking.
Yeah,
isn't
no,
it?
this one's only about the smoking.
During the five.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Thank you.
You're lucky.
Okay, see no one else come forward on this ordinance, entertain a motion, to close the public hearing.
Second motion.
Make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton, seconded by Mr. Valori. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Whereas the above ordinance was read in title on second reading and to hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that said ordinance be passed on final reading, and that a notice of final passage of said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mr. Stanton. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Ordinance number 2014:07, Mr. Paluso.
An ordinance to supplement and amend the zoning ordinance of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills to provide for the establishment of off-premise signs as a permitted use. The notice for the ordinance above was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, on April 28, 2014. Motion to accept that ordinance 2014:07 be heard on its second and final reading by title only. Second by?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Paluso, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Entertain a motion, open up the public hearing on this ordinance only.
Make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Paluso. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, see no one come forward. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing on this ordinance.
Make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Paluso. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Whereas the above ordinance was read in title on second reading and a hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that the said ordinance be passed on final reading and that a notice of final passage of said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the resolution.
Motion made by Mr. Paluso,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Valori. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Ordinance number 2014:08.
An ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of the Township Parsippany Troy Hills to address the O-2 Office Professional District. Notice for the ordinance above was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper, Township Parsippany Troy Hills, April 28, 2014.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Entertain a motion to open up the public hearing on this ordinance only.
Make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Paluso. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? See no one come forward. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing on this ordinance only.
Make a motion.
Motion
Second.
made by Mr. Stanton, seconded by Mr. Valori. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Whereas the above ordinance was read in title on second reading and a hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved said ordinance be passed in final reading, notice of the final passage of said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Valori. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Okay, ordinance number 2014:09.
An ordinance of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, County of Morris, and State of New Jersey, amending the zoning ordinance of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills in order to rezone certain properties to which the RCW Recreation, Conservation, and Wildlife Zone District. The notice of this ordinance above was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, on April 28, 2014. Motion to accept that ordinance 2014:09 be heard in its second and final reading by title only by
Okay, see no second. Motion fails. Consent agenda? What's that? Where's that? Oh, excuse me. Okay. Entertain a motion to open up the public hearing.
Make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Valori. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Okay, please state your name, your address, and please sign in. You'll have 5 minutes.
That's what's like, nope.
Hi, council member. This really isn't very loud, is it?
No, it's not.
No, okay. Council members and Mayor Barbario. I'm speaking as a private citizen. My name's Julia Peterson. I live at 25 Old Parsippany Road. I want to heartily support your passing of Ordinance 2014-09, which would rezone the areas in the Troy Meadows to RCW. As you probably know, my husband and I own a National Register historic house. Doing so, we've learned quite a lot about protection and preservation. When we knew we wanted to protect our house and property against development and preserve it, what we did was we put a conservation and historic easement on it. The land is permanently protected against development, whether we own it or not, because of this easement. It's in perpetuity. As a result, we own the only really protected property in Parsippany. Even though our land cannot be developed, we do pay property taxes on it. I'm amazed that there's an organization that purports to be preserving a natural area, as stated on these signs. And I have 4 copies.
Thank you.
I took those pictures last Sunday. They say that it's the area that we're talking about is a natural area and preserved for the public good. So I'm amazed that those signs are there, and that organization can post those signs and not pay taxes on the land, and then subdivide it and sell off housing lots when it's convenient for them. The status of the land held by wildlife preserves and claimed by them to be protected is really neither preserved nor protected, since it's not recorded in any deeds. Once a subdivision occurs, it can be sold off for development, and this has actually happened a couple of times in the past in this area, Allen Drive area. The greater shame of this is that this acreage is considered to be of the highest value to both the state and to our country as a watershed environment, a home to many species of reptiles, birds, and mammals. When you subdivide and sell land for development, you fly in the face of environmental responsibility. Recently, I made a map of Parsippany Troy Hills for the library. It's a puzzle map, so you can cut the pieces out and put it back together. It's a really interesting exercise. I used an 1868 map for the bottom, and of course that was all green because there was very little development in 1868. Parsippany was small and undeveloped. The Troy Meadows, however, was a historically very important area because charcoal was made there, cows were grazed there, and milk was cooled there in Smith's Ditch. The milk products were cooled and saved till they could be taken to New York. Okay, then I laid a bunch of pieces on top of the puzzle, which is the present day. So most of the puzzle pieces then were orange and red because we're pretty much developed out. However, I was surprised. There were 3 exceptions. I brought a little visual aid here. Here is Greystone, okay? I don't know whether I'm hugged. This is the piece that represents Greystone Park, and it's still mostly green. Here's the Jersey City Reservoir. And guess what this is? The Troy Meadows. It's bigger. The land area is bigger than the Jersey City Reservoir property, bigger than the Greystone property. It's an enormous chunk of our town. Almost the whole border between Route 80 and Whippany is bordered by this land. Makes it pretty important to people who live here. Okay? And most people here don't even know where the Troy Meadows are, but these acres represent an enormous fraction of the undeveloped land in our township. The possibility of developed uplands will put enormous pressure on our roads, schools, fire and police service, but even worse, it degrades a prime environment that we all depend on more and more. And if you imagine New York City without Central Park, you begin to get the idea of an impact of developing an area that's empty. The council has had the imagination and commitment to protect one of the last vast pieces of undeveloped land in Parsippany. For this, we citizens should be very thankful, and I do thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy Brighton, 24 Maplewood Drive. I'm also the chair of the Historic Preservation Committee. The Historic Preservation Advisory Committee is in support of the proposed Township Ordinance number 2014:09, amending the zoning ordinance to rezone certain properties, specifically the Troy Meadows, to the RCW Recreation, Conservation, and Wildlife Zone District. As noted in the ordinance, the Troy Meadows was designated as a national natural landmark by the National Park Service in 1967 as one of the last large wetland complexes in the state. The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection has further recognized the meadows as an ecologically significant area through the inclusion of the meadows in the New Jersey National Heritage Prairie Site and Natural Areas Program. The Troy Meadows is also a significant cultural landscape, having been utilized by the Native American inhabitants of this area, as well as the township's early Euro-American residents. Within the larger Passaic River Basin, the meadows, along with the Great Peace Meadows and other wetlands areas, provides flood storage and protection to the communities within the floodway. As described within the township's earliest planning documents, the meadows have been identified as an area for conservation and preservation. Under the stewardship and management of both the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection and Wildlife Preserves, the biological diversity of the meadows and its capacity for flood storage has been maintained and enhanced, preventing encroachment on and development within the meadows, as identified in this ordinance, is a step to ensuring its future protection, preservation, and conservation. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
How you doing? I'm Bob Algieri. I live on the corner of Parkside Drive and Troy Meadow Road. And the only thing that disturbs me here is I see recreation, and I'm certainly hoping that this is not going to be a dirt track or a quad track or a place for people to ride motorcycles, because that's what I have now going on in my backyard, as you've gotten to the point where they're really tearing the hell out of the place. They drive down there with full pickup trucks and they come out empty. They're dumping all over, and it's really getting to the point where it's out of control. I think recreation kind of worries me a little bit, because that can take on a broad perspective. So I don't know what, it's kind of a broad word, recreation. What do you mean by that? You mean that you're going to open up a quad track, or you're going to open up a skydiving, what is recreation? Because right now, as far as I'm concerned, behind my house, nothing is being enforced. No rules are being enforced, and no ordinances are being enforced. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
William Fiore. I'm an attorney. I represent wildlife preserves. I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding about wildlife preserves. I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding about wildlife preserves. It's a not-for-profit organization that for 50 years has held land in Troy Meadows, and we all concede, and some of the speakers have already said, that land is environmentally sensitive. And this council previously zoned most of the lands held by wildlife preserves, also lands held by the state of New Jersey, as recreation, conservation, and wildlife use. Now that zone by itself restricts pretty much any use of the property. And for years you've had this in your master plan, and your master plan says we are using the zone to protect environmentally sensitive lands. What this ordinance that is being proposed today does, it extends that to lands that are developable. And you're using the powers of zoning to take away the value of developable lands, which would normally be okay if there was a reason to do it, or a study that said these lands are environmentally sensitive. You can't treat one landowner, and wildlife happens to be the largest landowner in Parsippany. This ordinance wants to treat any lands held by wildlife to be RCW lands, irrespective of whether they're environmentally sensitive. Now, over the years, wildlife has endeavored and continues to endeavor to maintain Troy Meadows, but it's a not-for-profit organization that is not funded. We do get tax exemption as long as we keep the property in its natural state and for environmental purposes. But if we were ever to sell the property, the taxes would be due, and it'd be a rollback tax for 3 years. The problem I have with the ordinance is that I don't believe the council has really taken the time to do a study and to say, should we protect this land? Is there a reason, a zoning reason, to take away the value of the land and make it RCW? Or are there alternatives? Does the town want to preserve this property for its citizens and not have development along other residential developments? And if that's the case, if that's the town's objective, they could sit with wildlife, and wildlife will work with the town to try to develop a grant program so that the town either can acquire an easement to make this in perpetuity, or acquire the lands and further enhance the outlay of Troy Meadows. But by taking the zoning away, by taking away the R1, the R3 zoning, you're devaluing the land. So why does that matter? Well, one of the reasons it matters is that over the years, Troy Meadows has become the depository for utilities. Jersey Central Power and Light wants to put in a easement through the meadows. Public Service has an easement through the meadows. The town has various utility lines through the meadows. A pipeline company has approached us to try to put a pipeline through the meadows. And why do they do that? Why don't they go through land that is zoned R1, where owners in this town have R1 zone? Because it's too costly to get that land. By taking this and putting it into an RC zone, we now have to fight a fight with other people who want to use our property for public purposes and try to pay nothing for it. We are a not-for-profit organization. That doesn't mean what we have is for free. It doesn't mean that we don't have obligations to maintain the property that's environmentally sensitive. If we can't fulfill that goal, and sometimes that goal might involve sale of property. And so people are here tonight thinking that we were going to come in here with a development plan. This has nothing to do with a development plan, the zone change. This is pure and simple a zone change. You're taking developable land that you haven't studied to say it's not developable and moving it from that zone into an RCW zone, which we all know has basically no value. And so why are you doing it? I mean, I have to ask
30
myself.
seconds, sir.
I have to ask myself, why are you doing it? Does it make sense? Is it fair to treat a property owner in that fashion? Certainly if someone had a residence and you decided to put their residence in RCW zone, they'd be up here objecting. So I think the zone change should be tabled. I think there's other options for the town to accomplish the goals. Thank you.
Jonathan Nelson, 202 Patriots Road. My family moved to Parsippany almost 45 years ago, and I can remember back in high school, but I remember now this issue was coming up under the Barbario administration. I remember when it came up under the Luther administration, the Letts administration, the Priori administration, the Fahey administration, and the Luther administration. There's been problems with wildlife preserves. The libertarian part of me agrees with wildlife preserve that should we be rezoning only their parcels of land. Now, normally I would say that's not right, but this is a unique situation. The way that I would settle this is Parsippany has, give or take, $1 million, $7 million plus in open space funds. And I don't say this lightly, but if there has ever been a time for condemnation and taking public and giving them fair market value and having the town once and for all retain its property and to maintain it in its wildlife and current state, I think this is something that the township should look at. That's all I have on that. The second thing is, Mayor, I asked you last week about with the business administrator and the salary ordinance. Has that been straightened out?
Yeah, we're going to be amending it tonight.
Okay. The other thing is, I did ask you about the car, and you know, it's an ambiguous statement, but the ordinance was passed in 2008 under a prior administration for the council, and I'm just going to read it to you what the ordinance says. It says, no person whose date of employment begins after the effective date, which is in 2008, after the effective date of this article, shall receive a township vehicle for his or her business use and or as part of his or her compensation package. Furthermore, no employee who replaces an employee who, as of the effective date of this article, receives a township vehicle for his or her business use or and as part of his or her compensation package shall be entitled to receive a township vehicle as part of his or her compensation package. Now, the previous business administrator was exempt from this because she was grandfathered in. Another example is the township clerk. Judy Silver was here for many years, and she had a car that she took home. When a new clerk came in, that employee was not entitled to take the car home. There are exemptions in this ordinance. And the exemption from this, and this is what it says specifically, exempt from this article are emergency, the mayor, first of all, and then exempt from this are emergency service personnel who rely upon authorized emergency vehicles for the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the township of Parsippany. The mayor, so that doesn't, business administrator is not taking an emergency vehicle home. Mayor and other employees from various departments who use the township vehicle substantially and or wholly, so substantially or wholly, in the performance of their duties and in the furtherance of the health, safety, and welfare of the public. I've been racking my brain trying to remember once that Jasmine used her car to take home with her, where substantially or wholly in the performance of her duties to further the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Okay, thank you.
I'll respond to that. I read the ordinance too before I actually offered the vehicle to our BA. And first and foremost, the BA does do things when it comes to emergencies. During the storms, during the Hurricane Irene, Hurricane Sandy, the administrator was engaged. Ellen Sandman, one of the greatest things about Ellen is she's a public safety director prior. So she knows about public safety. She knows about things like that. And I granted her the vehicle based on that and plus her experience. I don't think it does violate the ordinance. I think that, you know, she's wholeheartedly going to be involved in my administration. She's going to be involved in all types of emergencies. And you know, that's, I think, Section C.
Just follow up. Can I ask the attorney to look at this? What is the attorney's position on this ordinance?
You can ask whatever you'd like, Mr. Nelson.
Yeah. I mean, she very well may, and I have no doubt that what the mayor says is true. I don't question it at all.
The mayor has indicated that the vehicle is being provided not in consideration or additional compensation for the job, but to enable the business administrator to perform her job in the way that is contemplated. And in that light, it is my view that the business administrators, the issuance of a township vehicle to the business administrator is appropriate and permitted under the ordinance.
Okay, so just to clarify, so the business administrator's position, substantially and wholly, the part of their job is taking the car home because without the car, that will impede their duties to further the health, safety, and welfare of the public. I guess that's your position. Because that's what the law says.
Mr. Nelson, I appreciate you stating my position, but I would prefer, with all due respect, to state my position myself, and I've just stated it.
Okay, thanks.
My name is Mary Przicki. I live at 273 Marcella Road, and I share the same address with Kenneth Przicki. My telephone number is listed on the sign-up sheet, and that's the same one I share with Kenneth Przicki. We are cheap and have one computer that we both use and share, so therefore we have the same email address. Because that's the way we want it, and it's our right to have it that way. As it was stated last week at the last council meeting, Kenneth Przicki is my husband on the township's planning board. We might share a lot of material things, but we are both independent thinkers with our own opinions to voice. His voice on the he voices his on the planning board, and I voice mine in front of the council. They are independent of each other. The dark ages of women not being able to express their opinion on public matters are long gone. So with that in mind, here is my thoughts on the ordinance number 2014-09, which you tabled. I urge the council to pass this ordinance for the following reasons. 1, it is consistent with the municipal land use laws to promote the conservation of open space and valuable natural resources in the state and to prevent urban sprawl and degradation of the environment. 2, the Troy Meadows areas are specifically recommended for protection and preservation in the goals and objections of both the Open Space Recreation Plan compiled by the Morris County Land Conservancy of 1999 and reinforced in the Open Space and Recreation Plan adopted April 4th, 2011 on page 58 as stated. The long-term 5-year plan action programs, one of which is to permanently protect lands owned by wildlife preserve through easements or county, state, and municipal acquisition. This recommendation is from the open space element of the Morris County Master Plan. To zone from R1 and R3 to R4W is consistent with the May 10th, 1904 Master Plan and Land Use Plan for the Township of Parsippany. Check on Section 1. The Master Plan goal and objections are, and I have it with what the goal and objections are on page 35, goal 11. I have it if anybody wishes to read it, okay? And I'm sure you have access to it. If you would like to go further back in time, I brought with me the building plan maps for the Township of Parsippany dated 1954, which clearly shows Troy Meadows area and the fact that development in the Allentown Drive area was to go from South Beverick Road 1,000 feet into the Troy Meadow area. Today it goes 2,000 feet, clearly not the intent of the 1954 plan. I also brought with me the historical, cultural, and resource survey done by the township in 1984. Item number 1429-161 describes the significance of Troy Meadows. As I read as follows. Today, that's 1994, Troy Meadows is vulnerable to destruction as a result of filling land for industry and housing, recreation and pollution, increasing siltation into Troy Brook, resulting from new construction is a major threat. Better prevention measures, including land use controls, should be used to protect this rare area in New Jersey, the inland wetland. What better way for the protection of our environment and benefit for the greater good of the residents of Parsippany than to pass the ordinance number 2014-09. Parsippany tried in 1963 to protect Troy Meadows and was challenged in court by Wildlife Preserve. The Supreme Court ruled in the favor of the Wildlife Preserve to keep areas zoned for legal and reasonable develop, a broad statement to say the least to me. For Wildlife Preserve, who do not pay taxes on any of the land they own in Parsippany, it should be, in my opinion, for them to not to seek for development and to change the residential areas that are zone residentials and support the change to the RCW to truly protect the meadow areas.
Mary, time's up, Mary.
Time's up.
Oh God, please, can I just finish one thing? All right, check their signs at the end of the road. The end of the road says on Allen Drive, this area contains rare, threatened, and endangered species, plants, and animals. This is Allen Drive.
Okay.
Designated
All right,
for
Mary.
prevention of natural, well, go there and check it. So
Okay.
what they say,
Mary, time's up.
all right, but check their application too, where it says what they want to do with that rare area. I'm sorry if my time is up, but I'm overtaking my time this time because it's an important issue to this town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just go read the signs for yourself. If they, and then let them tell you that the study wasn't done.
You can't have Ken Krasicki's time.
Good evening, gentlemen. Len Fariello, Wildlife Preserves. I manage the land of Wildlife Preserves. I just want to clarify, you did not introduce this ordinance, is that correct? This is not a public hearing for...
Mr. Ferriero, this is an opportunity for you to make comments. The council need not engage you in conversation. I think that the public record speaks for itself.
Is this a hearing for ordinance?
Mr. Ferriero, again, you can make whatever
No, this is the
statements you
public-
want.
This is the public hearing
But not for
on any
Okay.
topic.
I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, so I just say a couple of things. I would wish that the mayor would contact Wildlife Preserves and let's try to work together and work out any differences and accomplish what the town wants and what wildlife wants. Wildlife has protected this land for over 65 years. We protected land from the Great Swamp, the Black Meadows, the Troy Meadows, and the Great Peace Meadows. We're not a development company. The case that Mary Persicki cited was not Wildlife Preserves. It was the Meadowlands Development Corporation versus the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills. It was a sand and gravel company that bought the Perrine farm that was wanted to develop it. And I think that probably was the genesis of the RCW ordinance. But thank you for not introducing the ordinance, and I wish that we work together on this. And I will say one other thing, that one of the main areas that we recently did a minor subdivision on, wildlife in 1954, the township approved a subdivision. It was Section 2 of Parsippany Estates, and it consisted of 30 housing lots. In 1956, Wildlife purchased that property, and there actually was a road between Marcia Terrace and Bennett Court. It was connected. There was 13 building lots. Wildlife bought those building lots. We did not develop it. The landowner owned the land clear across the other side of the pipeline, had plans to develop that property. We've kept it natural for all these years. And thank you very much for your consideration. And I'd like to hear from the town, or I'll give the mayor's office a call or the clerk's office in order to open up a dialogue with the town, if that's okay. I don't know how to proceed. I guess I'll reach out to the clerk and get some advice on how we can open up a dialogue and talk about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I might add, our rangers are here. They protect the property.
pretty much full-time. We're a nonprofit, and we pay them to protect this property in its natural state. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ken Dalsky, and I just want to say I'm not here to talk about the JCP&L power line. My purpose, however, today is to alert and educate you about another threat of a utility-type nature that some of you know already are aware of. This is the Pilgrim Pipeline. And I know the mayor is aware of it. I know Mike is aware of it, and many, some of you others probably are also. The reason that I came here tonight to talk to you about it was that the Sierra Club had a press conference today and released some information, a letter to the governor, and also a press release in general describing the nature of the threat. So I wanted to come and just briefly describe it. I will give the documentation to the clerk for you to read at your leisure. And I'm working with the Sierra Club. I believe what we're going to do is put together a resolution and try and get a consortium of all of the municipalities that are on the potential route of the pipeline. And the reason that's important is because unlike natural gas lines, oil pipelines are not regulated by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. The development of oil pipelines are basically controlled by the New Jersey DEP and the local municipalities, i.e. you. And so I wanted to make sure that everybody's aware of this. And so basically this is a pipeline that's being built from Albany to Linden to carry raw crude down to Linden and then refined products back to Albany. Currently this oil, which is from the Bakken fields in North Dakota, is being barged down the Hudson, and then the refined products are going back up. I understand it's also being shipped on rail cars through New Jersey. And if you've been watching the news, you know that this oil, this Bakken oil, is extremely flammable. It's highly corrosive. It's very toxic. It's probably one of the most flammable oil products or raw crudes that has gotten out of the earth today. There was a fire in Canada that I believe claimed the lives of 47 people. There have been mostly railroad accidents, and when the stuff burns, it's so intense that firefighters don't even try to put it out. They just have to wait for it to burn itself out. Pilgrim Pipeline is not a utility. This is not mandated by any agency or regulatory organization. They have a way to get it to the refineries. This is just an entrepreneurial attempt to be a little bit more efficient. So some of the major issues are, like I said, it's highly inflammable, toxic, corrosive, explosive. On the conference call today, the Sierra Club member talked about it being so corrosive that they weren't even sure that the pipeline company understood how corrosive it would be. There are numerous accidents that have taken place, and there have been many accidents just with pipelines. There was an accident, pipelines leak. There was an LA accident 2 weeks ago with a 4-foot pool of oil in Mayflower, Alabama. People were living next to an Exxon oil pipeline they knew nothing about until it exploded. That exploded, but it started to leak and ruined their entire neighborhood. So it's a major risk. It's even more of a risk because it's going to go through the highlands, and it's going to be a major risk to water supplies, and it's a risk to all the communities. And even if doesn't explode or blow up, we already have the high voltage PSE&G lines. We've got a natural gas line. We have JCP&L putting another line there, and now this company wants to put an oil pipeline there. And even if everything worked, it's still damaging the property values of everybody along the route. It's getting a lot of publicity. People know about it, and people might say, why should I live next to an oil pipeline that has such risks? So there's no significant benefits to anybody in New Jersey that I can see. There may be some temporary jobs created while it's being built, but that's it. So basically, the only way this company can operate profitably is if they put the risk on people like the residents in Parsippany and all the other communities along the route from Albany down to Linden. Like I said, we're working with the Sierra Club to oppose the project. and I expect that we will have a resolution and that I can come back in the future and present it to you and ask you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council President? Yes. Mr. Dolsky also sent us a memo regarding the alternate route for JCP&L to go through the woodlands that we were supporting. Right? Montville drafted a resolution opposing that path and wanting it to stay where it affects the 60 homes in Parsippany. I think we should also adopt a resolution supporting an alternate path and preserving our neighbors.
Yes.
And thank you, Mr. Dolsky, for letting us know about that.
Just a Tom Mike at Bennett Court, 1 Bennett Court. Just a point of order. We're still on the ordinance at this point. No, we did go to public session.
Open public hearing.
Okay, I'm sorry. Missed that. All right. I wanted to speak about the ordinance because I guess we're not talking about whether or not it was going to be voted on tonight. I think a lot of people came here with that expectation, so it would be nice if there was some kind of explanation for all the people that came out to in support of this ordinance to know what's going on mechanically as far as the procedure here.
Yes, Joe.
For me personally, when I bought my house in 1993, we had asked the realtor about all the forest behind our neighborhood, and they basically said, "Oh, well, they'll never build back there. It's a wildlife preserve." Sort of, kind of a misleading term because we found out a few years later when we were trying to see if anybody could spray for mosquitoes back there that it's privately held. Nothing can really be done, but there's good and bad things about being located in an area like that. It's actually a really peaceful spot, being situated on a couple of cul-de-sacs with all that nice preserved land behind us, and it is part of the value of our home as well. I remember one night when 15 minutes after I put my daughter to bed, I woke her back up again because I wanted her to see the fireflies coming up out of the forest. It was just such a nice thing to be able to see something like that behind your home. And but it is, again, that's part of the value of our home as well. When we were having discussions about the Field of Dreams situation in town, buying the athletic fields from the Board of Education and installing artificial turf, I loved the idea of artificial turf. I know how bad those fields are, and I understood. My kids are going to be using those facilities in the next couple of years. But the biggest reason why I opposed that whole scheme was because of that tract of land behind my house. I would love to see, as Mr. Ferriello said, the town speaking to wildlife preserves to try to work something out. Because the libertarian part of me says that, that it is their property and they do need to pay the salaries of the rangers and such. But that is the kind of thing that open space money should be used for. And I really would applaud the council to look forward to preserving that and possibly working with wildlife for that. Thank you.
Good evening, council members, mayor. My name is Brian Cooper, and I live on Allen Drive. I'd like to start out by saying a couple of years ago, my wife and I got married, and we were looking for somewhere to raise a family. And after looking at many houses, we came to the house on Allen Drive. In our first drive through, one of the things that struck us as really nice is that the only houses were the houses on the street. We were surrounded by wildlife. Everybody was very friendly. And that's why we paid a premium to buy a relatively small house on the street. We've come to love the neighborhood. We love our neighbors. There's a lot of us here to support the ordinance. We would love to keep the neighborhood as it is. It's beautiful. The preserve is very natural. Deer and turkey, you wake up to see turkeys walking down the street. There's foxes. And I can tell you from experience that a large part of that land is not developable. It is wet all year long, and to sell it when they deem necessary for themselves, it seems a bit duplicitous. It's conservation wildlife for wildlife and to conserve it. So I support the ordinance. Thank you.
Council, Mayor. My name is Michelle Chappelle. I live at 25 Allen Drive. My husband and I moved here about 13 years ago. Since then, we've been fortunate enough to have a daughter about to turn 8. We grew up on completely different ends of the state. I grew up in Point Pleasant, born and raised there. My husband was born and raised in Hackettstown, New Jersey. Two completely different cultures, two completely different areas. And so when we came together and tried to find a home which would satisfy both our needs for something that was easy to get around to our jobs and our families, but also something that had an environment, which is something that we can enjoy. We can go out there, explore in the woods. And my daughter was something that she could appreciate nature. It was crucial to us. So much like Brian, when we found the neighborhood and we found the opportunity to live that close to nature and give my family the opportunity to experience that on a regular basis without any kind of hindrance of neighbors or noise, we jumped on it. So I do applaud you for exploring this opportunity to rezone this property. And I would ask, because it was not clear to me, why is this ordinance not up for vote tonight?
Well, I mean, it will go through the normal and proper procedures.
Okay, I'm sorry. I am just, again, I don't get to go to many of these, so I am a novice, so I appreciate your patience.
Not gonna say more than that.
But I did see this on the agenda, and just like the other things that you were voting on, I was just wondering, it seems like this is off the table for tonight. Could you explain to me why?
Well, there was a motion made, and there wasn't a second for that particular ordinance. And the ordinance would require a second in order for the ordinance to advance to public hearing. That particular ordinance did not receive a second, so that particular ordinance did not advance to a public hearing. That's the nature, that's the process.
Okay. Is there, again, I appreciate your patience. But is there something that needs to happen in order for it to be considered? Can we know why it's?
Why is it being so?
Well, it's not that it wasn't considered. It was that again, that particular ordinance would require a second in order to advance to a public hearing. And again, that particular ordinance did not receive a second.
So does that mean then that this is off the table forever, or?
No, doesn't mean that at all.
So when will we be hearing about it again?
When the council takes it up. Again, in order for something to move forward, it requires somebody to make a motion, and it requires a council person to second that motion.
Thank you very much. So then would we receive notices again if this is going to be?
If the process advances again to that level, then yes, you would receive a notice.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
2014.
Hi, thanks for listening to me. I'm Blaine Rothhauser. I live in Florham Park. I know Mr. Inglesano knows a lot about my hometown of Florham Park. And strangely, people might ask, well, what's a guy from Florham Park not watching, American Idol tonight in here at a council meeting? Well, it's really, really important. I'm a conservation biologist by trade. I've done a lot of work professionally for wildlife preserves. I'm here on my own volition. I'm not being paid. but I can speak intimately about two factors that most should consider. I don't know if anybody is looking at this parcel of land as in its ecological state, and what if anybody's walked onto the land from the council to this particular parcel and gone to the state and asked about it from a environmental standpoint, a deeper environmental standpoint. I don't know if anybody's done that. I don't know how many people in the public have walked the land proper and tried to understand the ecological underpinnings of that land. But if you haven't, I suggest you do, because not only does the town council have to make a decision on how to rezone it and for the purposes of open space and recreation, but understand what the land is in context of the rest of Troy Meadows. It's a buffer habitat. It's predominantly upland, does have wetland components, but it buffers critical habitat for threatened and endangered species that Wildlife Preserves has paid guys like me to go out and put on record so guys like you can take that information and say in your ordinances, your master plans, your open space information, the state's natural heritage information, and then they say, well, it's exceptional because A through B species are there. Well, Wildlife Preserves provided that information. Wildlife Preserves actively is out there protecting the land at their own expense. Wildlife Preserve gives nobody in this room any excuse to think that they're anything but a land preservation. I take a little umbrage when I hear somebody take the sign and show it to you guys and say, well, what are they really doing? You know, they're not really doing it. They're the only ones doing it. They're doing the heavy lifting. They've done it since 1952. And I know that Len Ferriello, a very open guy, he's very passionate. I think you guys found that out last week, but he's very passionate because he understands the system. He loves it. With all his heart and soul, he's given everything he can to preserve the exceptional resource value that the state has put on all the wetlands at Troy Meadows, based on the money that they've spent for consultants like me to go out and provide the impetus for you to make judgment calls on what that open space means. Why take an apple cart and, you know, reinvent it? It's working fine. There's no reason to believe that they're in it to do what everybody else is in it to do, and that is take this parcel and you know, subdivide it, make a lot of profit. They're doing a good job. Let them continue to do a good job. And if you do decide to have to change the zoning and say that it's for recreation and wildlife, if that really is the case, don't do it without a master plan to say, what are we going to enhance on this property first before we acquire it? Right, it's a race to the finish line. We lose 50 acres every day in this state to some form of development. And it's a race to the finish line to obtain what little open space is left. And I think we all agree on both sides of the aisle that that is a important thing that we have to do, acquire open space and try to protect it. I agree with that. That's the one thing we have a mutual agreement on. But then I'd love to see the council say, well, we're also going to spend money and enhance this habitat. We're going to put protection on it. When something goes wrong in Troy Meadows, a truck goes out there and destroys the habitat for all these species, which they're doing every day. The only ones out there that are calling it into the local police is Wildlife Preserves. I don't know how many people in this room have done as much to protect the environment as Wildlife Preserves. And again, I know my time is up. I thank you for it. And I just hope that you consider not upsetting an apple cart that's not broken, that the mutual ideas and concepts are right in concert with one another, protection of recreation value and open space and wildlife. Well, let the guys that are experts at it continue to do the good work that they do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can speak.
Gentlemen, my name is Vincent Perowick. What disturbs me about what I've heard tonight is an inconsistency in some of the information we've been giving. At a planning board meeting of February 10th of this year, Mr. O'Neill represented wildlife preserves. At that time, he proposed a subdivision of Lot 1, which was approved by the planning board. But when asked what the intent was for the subdivision, Mr. O'Neill indicated that it was for tax benefits. Mr. Parsippany of the planning board asked whether there was going to be development in those subdivisions. And the planning board said, not at this time. Not at this time. In addition, Mr. Parsippany pressed the issue and said, will you give us a guarantee regarding this? And Mr. O'Neill said he didn't have the authorization to do so. So I have my serious doubts about the intent of wildlife and what I heard here tonight. Thank you.
Sir, can you... Sir, could you just do your address for the record for the clerk?
Thank you.
I'm also here about the ordinance. It seems to be
Sir,
a good...
name and address, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nick Homiak, Lake Hiawatha, New Jersey. I have here a copy of the Code of Federal Regulations of the for a national natural landmark program. It's 3662. I just want to read a little bit of it. I believe the town is trying to do the right thing, but there's a lot of ambiguity about who makes up wildlife preserves, the difference between wildlife preserves and the private owners, and when they need money or when they want to subdivide a piece of land and then the town allows them to subdivide it. That's the other thing. There's a mixed intention there. Anyway, one of the objectives of the NNL program is that owners and the federal, state, and local government agencies will take this fact into account when making planning or other future land use decisions. In other words, if you have a national natural landmark in your town or your vicinity, you should encourage your zoning and the protecting of it to enhance it. But language was added to clarify that though recognition as an NNL may be used to support certain state or local planning or land use, such state and local actions are not required or mandated by the Department of the Interior. So what you have here is some mistrust or something between the township and wildlife preserves. And if this land is in jeopardy, I think it should be zoned. But or bought. This is another reason we have to have our open space money free again, because we may need it for situations like this, water view and other things. But is an ordinance enough? Because we have to have specific language. There shouldn't be any recreational development. It should be passive recreation. It should be preservation. But most of all, it should be incorporated into wildlife trust, whatever that is. The NNL, minus all the private owners and what they do or don't want to do with their particular land. But I believe that if the wildlife preserve is sincere and there's no easement coming, like they say, they're going to put a pipeline through there and they're going to get gypped on the money, they won't get the fair market value, then they do have an argument. If not, then they don't. Then this zoning should take place, and it's long overdue, I would think. So they should welcome Parsippany's final decision, finally, to recognize what a great thing that they have over here. So that's about it. But read these federal regulations. You can't force anybody to do anything. It's still their property. So it's a matter of cooperation and transparency by all parties involved for the best possible result, which is enhancement of the resource. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Roy Messmer, 10 Drumlin Drive. Like always, came here with a game plan, where that game plan is not the battle I expected. I want to thank real quick Mr. and Mrs. Peterson for opening their home a couple of weeks ago and for all the educational format that they provided. The puzzle and everything else was fantastic. I want to talk about tonight real quick, Ellen, or I guess it's going to be our new BA, and what went on. John Cesaro, former councilman, was here tonight. He has left. He's now our freeholder. Regarding some things that have gone on here with this council, with this administration, as I was brought up, that old saying, haste makes waste. Well, there's the situation here with Ellen's salary. Nobody takes the time out to look at stuff, read stuff that we spent many dollars on with prior attorneys, current attorney. Regarding the auto, I got to cover something else real quick, but regarding the auto, it was set up by John Cesaro and Grassi, the other three council people at that time. I don't know if Mr. Mayor was the councilman at that time, it was in between, but it was done for fiscal responsibility. Because back, whichever mayor it was, got out of hand with these cars. Everybody got a car in this town. I don't believe the business administrator, and I'm told this is a business administrator that's going to leave her desk and see this town. I'll take it for word that I've gotten from people. But from Missouri, not really, but I want to see it. I don't think she should get a car to begin with. Let her document her mileage. The ordinance was set up that way, was for because we know the problems this town is in, this county is in, this state is in, and this country is in. We're in big trouble. She's coming here with a higher pay scale. It's going to help her pension. She might be the best BA that we've ever had, maybe in the state of New Jersey. But let's get it proved to us. All right, now what ticks me off, I came here in June of 2013 to talk about the occupancy thing. All you men and women, go look at the Parsippany Focus, see where the voting has been coming in. The town wants this. The people, the majority. Chris Christie would love to get that percentage when he ran for governor the last time. And Justin made a statement last week that we didn't get the letter from the state of New Jersey, but that's not what I was told few weeks before, Mr. Inglesino. So there was something, I was either given misinformation or whatever. All right, the next thing. This is a prepared statement that somebody asked me to read here tonight. I did not do the research on this. I want to clarify that. But if you go to the end of Marcia Terrace, Allen Drive, Bennett Court, you will find the following signs. 1, Nature Area and Wildlife Sanctuary. This area contains rare, threatened, and endangered species of plants and animals. 2, State Natural Area. 3, end of Allen Drive designated for the preservation of natural diversity, Green Acres Tax Exemption Program. This privately owned land is dedicated for public recreation / conservation. New Jersey SA 54:4.3.63 ET, it says, I guess it says Esquire, State of New Jersey DEP, P.O. Box 412, Trenton, New Jersey. The choice is yours to vote to rezone this area for permanent protection. RCW is a step in the right direction. If Wildlife believes in the signs they put up and their mission statement, then they should support this change. Again, I'm doing a tag team here. I have no problem with that because the person I got it to, I have the utmost respect and admiration for. How much time do I got left, Brian?
You got 1:15.
Ooh, great. Okay.
Make that 30 seconds.
I'm surprised they talked that fast. I hope everybody stood me. Regarding Montefusco, I got my hands, and if I misplaced it, shame on me. I think I did. The joke of the matter is, you know our sign should be changed, Mayor? Sign should be changed, not Pride in Parsippany or the place to be or play, whatever it's called. It should say where crime pays. We have 3 law enforcement agents, or 2 retired. I mean, you got the sign right out there. Call this number if you see crime. It's a joke what this judge is making Montefusco pay back to the town. Has this council seen that documentation from the judge? Justin got it better than what the judge wanted. 30 seconds? What the judge wanted to lay down on him. He got up and he spoke. I wish it was on videotape. I would bring it in and show it to you guys. It's a joke. I don't know if there could be additional repercussions by us. Just like, we remember that OJ thing with the glove, and then that's when I learned something too about law, where you got civil, doesn't have to be as much information or whatever as versus criminal, et cetera, et cetera. I'm babbling here because this really ticks me off. That guy, what he did to this town. I'm done?
Yep.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
nobody's getting a lottery ticket tonight, I'll tell you that.
Hi, my name's Ed Christine. I'm a land steward for a wildlife reserve. And all I have to say is we are doing a lot of stuff in the woods back there. We clean up trash. We probably removed about 19 tree stands that are illegally there. What?
Use this talk up a little bit. That's his talk up.
Is it good?
There you now, yes.
Anyway, yeah, I'm a land steward, and I do get paid. I'm retired. I'm a stay-at-home dad. But in the past 6 months, we probably removed almost 20 illegal deer stands, tree stands for deers, ground steers. In the river, the Whippany River, we're finding body traps for river otters and minks. So there's a lot of illegal stuff going on, and wildlife is doing stuff about it. We're cleaning up the trash and everything. So, we're trying to do good with you guys. So that's all I gotta say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pat Patacha, 182 Hawkins Avenue. My agenda is off tonight also. Joe, you promised me the amount of open space money across all departments and the sewer surplus that's being used across all departments. Tell me at the end. Thank you. Business administrator. Very nice lady. I have nothing against her. Okay? But when I see that our administrator was making $123,000, and we're offering this administrator to come in at $140,000. That's a $17,000 difference. I don't care how qualified you are. Okay, seriously. You all ran on saving the taxpayers' money. You are not doing that. You are making it worse. Because yes, when she retires, she's going to be retiring with that big salary. And that's coming off Parsippany. Thank you. There's no savings there, guys, right? Okay? As far as the car, Jamie, you were on the council. Mr. DiPiero, you were on the council. John Cicero, Ann Rossi, and Mr. Fox. They ran on the fact that no cars were going to be given out anymore, no matter to who. Jamie, that was the outcome of that ordinance back then. That is what the taxpayers wanted, and that is why it was done. Now, to have, and I know this, and I don't want to hear it again, is that every time we question something, it's Mr. Inglesino's opinion. That is not what was meant by this. Okay? You know what was meant by this. You know. You keep breaking your own ordinances, and you're putting the town at risk for a lot of stuff. I just don't see how you can sit here and keep making up laws and then changing them on your whim without consulting anybody else. Yes, Mayor, I know. You can do what you want, but the council has to approve it. Now, that ordinance was out there for that specific reason. You can ask any taxpayer that attended that meeting. Go ask Ann Grassi. Go ask John Cesaro. We got to stop this stuff. This is ridiculous. One more thing I have is that I'd like to ask Mr. O'Neill that I have a letter here dated 6/17/13. Was their original application. Owner Wildlife Preserves, property Troy Meadows Road. The proposal was subdivision of an existing 741-acre site into a conforming 3-lot subdivision. The proposed use is anticipated residential in nature and is permitted in the zone. Property owned Wildlife Preserves Incorporated, which proposes to subdivide the existing undeveloped site for eventual sale of the subdivision lots. Okay? So they are. They can say they're not, but they are. We have to be... I can't stress it enough, guys. I've been up here so many times. In 10 years, it's ridiculous. You got to start thinking about the taxpayers and stop thinking about who owes who what and whatever happens, okay? Start worrying about us. We put out those ordinances. They were okayed for that reason. You should be abiding by that. You should not let the taxpayers down. $17,000. Too much money. You're not doing what you ran and said you were going to do. And you know me, I'm holding every one of you what you said. And Mayor James Barbario, you know, I have an elephant mind. I don't forget things.
Neither do I, Pat. So, I'll respond, counsel, when the time comes.
Joe?
Joe, do you have those numbers?
Yes, I do. Open space across between Capitol and also Knoll for the debt service is $370,700. The sewer fund balance, we're using $155,000, and current fund is a revenue. We're also using $1 million in the actual sewer budget. Now, the thing to note of that is last year we used $2 million as a revenue, and we used $550,000 as a revenue in current. So it's substantially down.
Yes, it is. It's just the fact we're still using it, but, you know, it's substantially down, yes. However, I still think, and I'll reiterate this again to the council, the open space ordinance, you better look at it carefully, because I swear to God, we should not be paying for maintenance. It says it right in the state book. Why we put it in there, and nobody is looking at this. I've questioned it 1,000 times.
Pat, the 2 items that we're using it for isn't for maintenance. I can tell you that. That's why I looked.
Well, what I saw in the budget was
Time's up. Well,
for parks and forestry using it
We
for...
can talk later, but when I looked at the 2, they're not for maintenance issues.
Well, that's not what was in the budget.
Right. That's why I'm looking at it.
Then I'd
before
like
it
to
came
see the
through.
revised, what they're doing with it, because everything under there was maintenance work originally. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, see no one else come forward. Entertain a motion to end the public hearing.
Make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Valori. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Mr. Paluso.
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori.
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Can I respond, Council President?
Go ahead.
To some comments that were made tonight. In reference, with regards to the business administrator, no fault to the council, because when I offered the $140,000, salary ordinance has to be amended, okay? And that's being amended tonight. I've heard Mr. Mesmer and Ms. Patachia, and part of the duties of the BA is health, safety, and welfare of the public. And I can tell you this much. For the last 4 years I've been the mayor, when we had our snowstorms, we had all our storms, our BA was here. When I closed Town Hall, and the reason why I closed Town Hall was for the public safety of our workers, but I had to have people here. I always could depend on the BA. Always could depend, and I will be depending a lot on the BA that we have. First of all, Ms. Pataccia, don't put words in my mouth. I know I was part of that on that council, and I said to those council members then that I felt the BA and the mayor should have the vehicle. I never said it. I said it to them, Pat. You can nod your head all you want, but the fact of the matter is that this position is a very important position to the township, to the residents. The average in Morris County, the average BA in Morris County is 135,000. But you get towns like Randolph, which is 180,000. Towns like Roxbury, smaller than Parsippany, 142. Randolph, I said Randolph, 181,000. Pequannock, $181,000. I hope you don't leave now, Alan, because you can see there's other places that pay a lot more than Parsippany. We're the largest town in the township of Parsippany, in the Morris County. And I truly do believe we got a really good BA that's coming here, and she's going to do an excellent job. That being said, and when it comes to the salary, council's held harmless on this, because I expressed to them what I felt she should be paid with the recommendation of our BA, Jasmine Lim. So that being said, I think it's well worth it, and you will see. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, good.
Consent agenda. Be it resolved, all items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine, non-controversial by the Township Council, be approved by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless the council member so requests, which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda, considered in its normal sequence on the agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Stan, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori. Sorry.
I said yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Approval of minutes, non-consent agenda. Motion to approve, entertain a motion to approve the minutes listed below.
Make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton,
Second.
seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Abstain, was not here in 2013. Thank you.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Abstain, I wasn't here in 2013.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Okay, ordinances for introduction. Ordinance 2014:13. Mr. DePiero.
Ordinance of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills authorizing the execution and renewal of a lease with the caretaker of Watnung Gardens. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills held on May 20th, 2014, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on June 17th, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law.
Second.
Motion to approve the above resolution.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mr. Stanton. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori.
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Ordinance 2014:14. Mr. Paluso.
An ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending section 35411 yard waste of the Code of Township of Parsippany Troy Hills. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council for the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills held on May 20, 2014, and that the said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on June 17, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time or as soon as thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise the said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Paluso, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori.
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Ordinance 2014:15 15, Mr. Stanton.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 2013:16 titled Ordinance Establishing White Collar Salary Ranges, Township Parsippany Troy Hills. Be resolved said ordinance be introduced, read by title, passed on first reading, and a meeting on Township Council, Township Parsippany Troy Hills, May 20th, 2014. Said ordinance be further considered for second reading. Final passage at meeting be held June 17, 2014, 7:30 p.m. prevailing time. Soon thereafter, as matter may be reached at the municipal building, said township, which time all persons interested shall be given opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved, clerk be authorized, directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Valori. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Ordinance 2014:16, Mr. Valori.
An ordinance of the Township Parsippany Troy Hills, County of Morris, and State of New Jersey, amending the zoning ordinance of the Township Parsippany Troy Hills in order to rezone certain properties to the RCW Recreation, Conservation, and Wildlife Zone District. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting at the Township Council, the Township Parsippany Troy Hills, held on May 20th, 2014, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on June 2nd, 2014, 6 p.m. for prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance, the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law.
Second.
We need a
That'll
correction
be,
on that.
6 p.m. 6 p.m.
I thought I said 6 p.m.
Yeah, Councilman Valori said it correctly, 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
In the agenda, it's printed as 7:30
7:30
p.m. The public should be on notice that the time printed in the agenda is incorrect. The special meeting will be held at 6 p.m. on June 2nd.
Okay.
There was a second?
Motion made by Mr. Valori,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Stanton. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori.
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to have special meeting scheduled for 6 p.m. on June 2nd in council chambers for purpose of public hearing and second reading and possible passage of this ordinance.
I'll second that.
Motion made by myself, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori.
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Resolutions, non-consent agenda. Mr. DePiero. 2014.
Resolution 2014-076. Resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills amending the 2014 temporary budget 3. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mr. Stanton. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori.
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. 2014-077, Mr. Paluso.
Resolution 2014-077, resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills authorizing the 2014 municipal budget to be read by title only. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Paluso, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori.
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. 2014-078, Mr. Stanton.
Resolution Township Council, Township Parsippany Troy Hills, authorizing self-examination of the 2014 municipal budget.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton, seconded by Mr. Valori. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso.
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori.
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. 2014-079, Mr. Valori.
2014 municipal budget introduction. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Valori, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori.
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. 2014-080, Mr. DePiero.
Resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills approving the interlocal services agreement with the County of Morris to form a consortium to conduct home investment partnership activities. Motion to approve the above motion.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mr. Stanton. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso.
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori.
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Before you do that, Council President, I
Stand
want
by.
to thank the council tonight for introducing the township budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton,
Second.
seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso.
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori.
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
This is pretty civilized, right?